sick all through middle school. Had a lot of like the classic digestive symptoms, just a lot of issues that shouldn't be going on, even like migraines, joint pains, fatigue, especially fatigue. That was the biggest one. And also about like I lost 25 pounds of weight in about 6 months. So
Wow.
this was a time of my life. Obviously, at 13 years old, I should have been thriving, but I was just kind of regressing. And luckily, I got diagnosed at 13. But as you know, celiac at any age is really difficult, and it was pretty hard as a teen too. So I actually ended up having to be homeschooled at age 15 is when I started homeschooling, and I have a lot of health issues as well, which I can share later if you want. But
Hmm.
really, they got really bad to the point where I found myself unable to go to school, unable to get a normal job, unable to drive, and just unable to do normal things that a teenager or just a young adult should start to be doing. So I found myself wanting to just help other people. It's kind of in my nature. That's just who I am. But also help other kids my age because there was really nobody back in like 2010, really nobody to help. Um, and I was only hearing from parents' perspectives and adults. And when you're a teen, obviously, it's different when you're hearing from an adult or your parent. You're just like, oh, I don't want to listen to them. I just want to be a teen. I just want to listen to my peers. So I wanted to be that at least for other people my age, and that's what I started my blog as. I started it just to help kids and teens, but I quickly learned that my point just being is that teens aren't really interested in looking up recipes online at 15 years old. They just don't care, and I didn't really either. Now that I think about it, but the parents of the kids and teens, they want to do anything that they can to help them with celiac disease or gluten intolerance or whatever it is. So I ended up getting 1 million readers in my first year of blogging, which was crazy to me because I just wanted to help people. I was happy if I helped even one person, and all of a sudden I got 1 million readers in a year, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And then from then on out, I just loved it. I just loved helping people, and it kind of took off from there. Where I just turned 18, decided that I didn't want to go to conventional route of college. I wanted to use my passion of helping people to try and make a career. And luckily, my mom was in marketing as well, so I got a little bit into the marketing side, learned some things from her. She actually got laid off and joined me to help me out. And then a lot more ideas started, but we ended up starting a bakery 2 years ago as well in Tampa, Florida. So I moved from Tampa since then. I lived there for 5 years. But my mom runs the storefront of the bakery, and I do all the social media. So now I primarily just do social media and online work, still to help people as much as I can.
I love that.
Thanks.
So there's a lot in your story, obviously, and that's just a
Yeah.
snippet. But what what do you feel like were your biggest struggles if you had to put it to your biggest struggles of being 13, 15,
Hmm.
like having celiac disease, there weren't a lot of voices, like
Yeah.
did you find anyone in your age bracket that you could relate to?
No, no, not at all, really. There was one kid I remember at the last school I was at before I went homeschooled who had celiac, and he ended up being one of my better friends. But he wasn't very outspoken, and he was pretty kind of upset about having it. So he wasn't really like me, where, yeah, I was kind of ashamed at first, and I was embarrassed naturally because I just wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
But I quickly learned that it was just a part of me, and it kind of allowed me to mature very quickly, to where I wasn't ashamed of it. And I would say the hardest part in the beginning was definitely just dealing with the other kids and the other teens, and just wanting to fit in because food is so social all the way up until your adult life. It's always social, but especially in the cafeterias and things like that, it was so difficult. So definitely just finding friends who understood, who knew actually wanted to be there for me with celiac. That took a lot of time. I lost a lot of friends. I gained a lot of friends, but it really allowed me to see who my true friends were, and it was kind of a way just to filter out friends by seeing, okay, these people aren't rude to me about something I can't control, celiac. They accept me and they want me to find food. So I would definitely say that was the hardest thing was just, and that doesn't change when you're adult. Is just socializing really, and just meeting people who understand or at least try to understand and be empathetic about celiac. That was definitely the hardest. Still is, but it gets a little easier.
That's very true, and
Yeah.
it's a good point. It's something you can't control, right? Like
Right.
you have zero control over it, and so you find out like who actually wants to be a part of your
Mhm.
life because it's not going to change. Like you're going to be
Right.
gluten free for the rest of your life.
Right, for sure. And that's the thing that I think it's hard to realize when you're a kid or a teen is you don't want to accept that this is forever. You, at the time, it feels like everything has so much magnitude. Like you feel like it's the end of the world when anything happens when you're a teen. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
told you can't eat this food for the rest of your life, I think a lot of teens go through not wanting to accept that and wanting to rebel and just wanting to eat those foods anyways. And I can say when I was younger, I actually never did that, and I was kind of proud of myself for that. But as I've gotten older, I'll admit that it's gotten harder to stick to a gluten-free diet. And there's a lot of situations with friends at a sports game, whatever it might be. It's harder when there's no options there and you just want food, and it's harder to stick to that. I'll admit, especially since turning
That's very true, and it's a good point. It's something you can't control, right? Like you have zero
21
control
when
over
under the
it, and
influence of
so
alcohol or
if
things
you
like
let
that.
like
But
actual
I'm human
foods
too,
be a part
and
of
it's
your
just
life,
you
like
can't be perfect all the time. And I just try not to beat myself
gluten-free
up if I
for
make
the
a
rest of
mistake
your
and
life.
slip up, and I try to do better next time. So I think it's good to just not be too hard on yourself if you ever do something wrong with your diet, I guess.
I think that's really important. And I was just watching your stories before we jumped on live. So anyone who hasn't seen them, go back and watch them after. Because I think it's like what you just hit on. I mean, that's what I'm all about in terms of, not being judgmental, but it all starts with yourself, right? Like what
Right.
you're saying of not beating yourself up. Like it's so critical how we talk to ourselves, the things we
Mm-hmm.
say, and then that becomes an outward manifestation, right? Like
Yeah.
generally, when somebody's really judgmental, you can assume they probably are very hard on themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I find the most judgmental people to be the most insecure as well with themselves. So that's why I think that's why I try and preach and I talk about that a lot. I've gotten away from talking just about gluten free. I think once you figure out what it's like to be gluten free and once you figure out how to do it your own
I
way,
think that's
you
really
realize
important.
that
And
it's
I
just
was
a
just
very
watching
small
your
part of your
stories
life. And
before
there's so
we
many
jumped
more
on live. So
things
I think
that
this is
are
definitely
hard
really
and
important
life
to
is
talk
hard.
about.
And
Because
yes,
I
celiac
think,
doesn't make
like
it
what
any
you just hit
easier,
on, I mean, that's what I'm
but
all about
I think you
in
just
terms
realize
of,
that being
not
kind
being
to yourself
judgmental,
and
but being
especially
kind to
others, but
yourself, right?
yourself most
Like
of
what you're
all,
saying of
really,
not
it
beating
gets
yourself
paid
up.
back
Like
to you as well
it's
because
so
you're left with yourself at the end of the
critical
day and you're left
to
with your own
talk to
thoughts. And I just
things
think
we
it's really
say,
important to be kind
and
with, to
then
yourself,
that becomes an
even if you make a
outward
mistake.
manifestation, right?
And
Like
I
generally, when
also think it's
somebody's
hard
really
to
judgmental,
try
you
and be perfect when it's nearly, it is
assume
impossible. But we live in a world of social media where you only see perfection and you don't really see a whole lot of people sharing their mistakes. So I'm trying to share that and I'm trying to be honest. And that's my whole thing. Anybody that knows me
very
personally,
hard
I'm
on
the same exact way.
themselves.
This isn't just my. Brand or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just am a firm believer in just preaching honesty with yourself most of all allows you to be honest with others too. And that's kind of my whole approach. And yeah, that's applied to diet and celiac too, but life overall.
Yeah, and I think that's so critical for people to hear and understand because unfortunately there is a lot of like judgment and shaming I
Hmm.
in general, but especially in the gluten-free community.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to lighten up a little bit. Like we understand the severity of it. Nobody is out here preaching like go eat gluten. That's
Right.
not the point.
Right.
But I think the point is like you're a human being and you're having a human
Right.
experience, and it's a really hard thing some days in a
Yeah.
world filled with gluten. Like
Yeah.
it just is.
Absolutely. And I feel like being gluten free is so personal to a lot of people, and everyone experiences differently. Even when you eat gluten, there's over 100 different symptoms for those who have celiac that you can experience while eating gluten. And I think people experience it differently. So when they hear someone else slip up, or they hear someone admit that they've eaten gluten willingly, whatever it may be, they decide to be like, oh, I would never do that because it makes me feel a certain way, or I'm sick for days. And I get that way sometimes too. But I also, I think, like you said, you can't be too hard on people and hard on yourself either, because at the end of the day, that's their decision and that's their choice. And if it's not affecting you, then I'm kind of a firm believer in not really getting upset about it and just trying to allow people to do what makes them happiest, or to do what makes them happiest and allow them to make mistakes so they can grow on their own, and not trying to push your own, like, I eat gluten free, meaning, oh, I only eat vegetables and fruits and meats. Well, some people like eating packaged foods that make them feel normal again. I like eating gluten free macaroni sometimes because it makes me feel normal again. But I've definitely had those people who are like, oh, that's still bad for you, you know? I'm like, yeah, I'm well aware gluten free macaroni or gluten free cookies is in fact worse for me than regular cookies nutritional wise, but I don't care. It's my choice. So I just think people shouldn't be so judgmental about things, especially if it doesn't harm others. And the only way we grow and feel better about ourselves is just from learning from our own mistakes. And you need to be accepting of allowing people to have those mistakes too. And that's just my opinion and kind of what I try and share too.
I love that you're sharing that because I think it's especially important for, 20 somethings to hear that, teenagers to hear that. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a wide range of people. I mean, not that people older and parents can't relate, of course, too,
Right.
but like you have a unique platform of really being able to speak to teenagers, 20-year-olds, like
Mm-hmm.
because you've lived and breathed this experience and you're still walking through this experience. And
Yeah.
so, you really have this amazing platform that you've created and that you created at a really young age, which is
Yeah.
awesome,
Thank you.
like so empowering for people because most people are terrified at that age. Like, what are people going to think of me? What if I put myself
Right.
out there? Like that
Right.
alone is awesome. And like, I
Thank you.
hope you give yourself credit for that.
I try. I think I forget sometimes because I've been working. I mean, this is my job technically, is doing this and talking to people, and doing social media. It is my job, so it's easy to get lost in when I started and how that can have an impact on people. So I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I try and talk about as well. And that was my goal, actually, remembering since the beginning, is when I started at 15 years old, I wanted to create something for anybody at any age starting. They can look at me and look at my experience and look and see that life is what you make of it, and you can't control what happens to you or what people do to you. But you can control your own actions and how you respond to things. And definitely easier said than done. That doesn't mean I haven't had moments where I broke down and I like cried about like just having a really tough situation with my health, or that doesn't mean I didn't have hard moments, even though that's kind of hard. I'm not gonna do an Instagram live when I'm crying about like something, but because I don't think about that. But it definitely still happens, and I think everybody deals with that too, and everybody has those really hard experiences. But my goal, like I said, is just to show people that that's normal and that that's okay, and that's just a part of being happy with your diseases. Well, as happy as you can be, at least being accepting with yourself, and just making the most of your situation, because that's all you can really do. You can't control that you have celiac or you can't have gluten, but you can control how you react to it and make the most of the situations. And luckily, food is getting a lot more. There's a lot more options now too in restaurants and products. So since I got diagnosed, it's a lot better there as well, which I'm definitely grateful for.
Yes. Very wise. That's so much wisdom.
Thank
I
you.
mean, that's the work, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
the daily work. Like accept your circumstances, figure out how to change your mindset and show
Mm-hmm.
up, in a way that you're proud of yourself, that you're excited and that there's always going to be circumstances that you can't control, like
Right.
always.
Right.
And you can control your attitude, you can control how you show up, you can control your energy and what you put out there. Like I'm a big believer in all of that.
Yeah.
And you also get to be human. You get to have frustrating moments and you get to, cry and be upset and all those things that
Mm-hmm.
come with being a human. But at
Right.
the end of the day, like you get to choose who you want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, like you said earlier, that's good to try and educate younger people about that. And I know I say that like I'm old, but I'm only 22. Um, but I at least, that's why I'm trying to do this while I'm young and try and make the most of it, because I just want to be an influence to people my age and maybe adults of people my age to see that, yeah, younger people aren't lazy and younger people aren't closed minded about certain things or whatever it may be. Some people are, but that's with every generation. But
Yeah.
mainly just trying to show that, yeah, like you said, that really just you're in control of your own, emotions and how you deal with things. And just being honest about life and that it's hard and celiac's hard and all these things are hard, but you at least can try to make an effort each day to make the most of it. And that's not shared enough on social media, unfortunately. I think it was easier when social media wasn't prevalent and you just saw people day to day and you have friends who deal with hard things and you talk about it. As much as I love social media, sometimes I think it's a little difficult, but I'm trying to break that barrier and just be honest about that with celiac disease and just what illnesses, everything.
That's important, really important, especially, like I'm old enough that I didn't have social media growing up, like in high school and middle school, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a totally different experience now for kids that grow up with that. And,
Yeah.
now there's all these stats and studies showing how much more depression we have. And
Mm-hmm.
just like, because people are looking at social media as the bar and they don't understand, right? Because your brain's still developing,
Right.
you're still like, you don't live in an adult body yet. You feel like you
Mm-hmm.
do, but you don't. And so you don't
Yeah.
have the mindset to understand, like, oh, this is not a full picture of someone's
Mm-hmm.
life.
Right. Yeah, and that's just really hard because it's just a endless cycle of people seeing other people post stuff where their life, looks perfect. So you're not going to go out there and start sharing pictures of when you had a hard moment in the car, when you were like upset about something at a restaurant, or you're not going to share those bad things because people, I think, especially Instagram, go on there for positivity. And that is one of the nice things I like about Instagram is on Facebook, it's gotten very political and a lot of negative things, but it's definitely that's what people want is positivity. So I think you can do that while still being honest. And you don't have to just paint a perfect picture of your life, but I think being honest shows that positivity as well. Is that, hey, I'm human, but I'm still going on. I'm still getting up when I fall down, and that's positive in itself. Just because you share hard moments doesn't mean you have a sad life, and people think that now. It's just that's normal, and I hope more people start to do that too. I'm seeing it more, especially for women, starting to share about body positivity and things like that. But from males, I really am not seeing it too much at all. So I'm hoping that happens more. And I know we're getting off topic from gluten and celiac, but I
It's
think,
life. I like it.
yeah, it's life. And I think it's good to just talk about it all. And I think it's the one thing about the gluten-free community, too, is that people just get, like you said, judgmental and get so up in arms and just stuck in this gluten-free bubble. But there's just so much more outside of that and so much more that relates to it. Because you got to think about it. Our friends don't deal with being gluten free, or even our parents or family. And if that's all we're talking about all the time, we're going to always be unhappy just worrying about this thing and worrying about celiac. And eventually, everyone grows differently and everyone gets used to it at their own pace. But I think that's the most important thing that I try and preach too, is that it does get easier. And I know it's very cliche, but it does get easier as long as you keep working at it and realize that there's more to it as well than just having celiac or gluten free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody asks, what are your thoughts about wheatgrass? Celiac safe?
Do you have an opinion on that?
I
I do,
don't.
but okay.
No, go. I don't live anywhere where I can find wheatgrass. So
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, for the most part, from the science of it that I know, it's safe. The reason is because the grass isn't developed to form the protein in the grain. It's just the grass. So the grain or the protein does not exist in the grass until it develops, and then it creates the grain that is wheat. So wheatgrass, even though the name sounds scary, it should not have wheat in it or the protein gluten because it's just a grass that's typically used for smoothies or wheatgrass shots or things like that. So I don't know. I guess check with the manufacturer or whatever it may be. But from my understanding, have never heard it to be containing gluten.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's
So,
also like buckwheat. It can be very confusing
yeah.
to newly diagnosed celiacs, right? Like it's a strange name. I don't know why they have it named buckwheat, that it's gluten free, but
Right.
gluten free.
Right. Yeah, and it's even used in a lot of gluten-free breads too. So I mean that's pretty confusing. Same with like Star products. I don't know if you know about their products, but they actually have wheat in it. It's a special, I think it's hydrogenized wheat protein, but the way it's developed or the way that it's processed actually removes the protein from it. So they list wheat on their ingredients, but it doesn't affect those who have celiac, which is interesting. Just something
Very
with some Star
interesting.
products if you've ever seen that.
Very interesting. Okay. So talk to us a little bit about the bakery.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a surprise for us. I never in my life, again, I'm talking like I'm old, I never thought that I was going to be starting or opening a bakery. But I started it with my mom when I lived in Florida for 5 years. I started it in Tampa, Florida, 2 years ago before I moved to Columbus, Ohio now. And it really started from us creating this gluten free event center there that was meant to help people by sharing educational classes, cooking classes, having these like special meals where everyone could come and everything was gluten free. So it was a great idea, but it was hard to get people to show up, and honestly, we weren't able to really keep it running because it just wasn't doing well. But if you know anything about Florida, they don't have a lot of gluten free options at all. But there's a lot of people there who are gluten free, older and younger. So what we did is we had a lot of people coming to us asking if we could start a bakery because we would make our own recipes there just for fun at these events. Um, and we knew nothing about baking, but it happened to work out where we were trying to find something else to start business wise. And we met this girl who was actually helping out at our events. Her name was Jackie because we had volunteers, and she happened to be a pastry chef. We went to college and everything, but she just got laid off about a year ago. She actually quit because she developed a severe gluten intolerance as well as the DH, like eczema, where she would, from airborne, she would, oops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So she ended up having to quit her job, our baker, at the Hard Rock Hotel and Cafe, and she was about to move somewhere because try and find a job because she literally couldn't be in any bakery without it being completely gluten free. So it really worked out. So we started it 2 years ago, and it just took off from there. Where it was a slow process, but I was moving away the fall of when we were starting it, which was a big problem. But my mom, who had me when she was 18 years old and had basically been a single mother most of her life, it was really hard for me to move away for her. And she's a very, very hard worker. It's where I get it from. So she wanted to take that on as her own little thing to just kind of cope with me leaving, the nest or whatever you would call it. And I've always done social media and online social media marketing. So we still work together. We talk almost every day, which is awesome. But she runs the bakery there with her baker and a couple other bakery assistants, and I help the planning, the social media stuff. I do all the posts, the responses, and she does an amazing job. She deserves most, if not all, the credit for doing that. But it's our bakery. We're co-owners, but I'm not there, so I have people that message me all the time that expect me to be there, but I'm not, unfortunately. So yeah,
Well, everything looks amazing. I follow you guys on
thank you.
social. And my question, I mean, I don't live anywhere that I can get it, but my question for US people is, do you ship?
We used to, and we plan to in the future. The reason we stopped shipping is because we had problems with the carrier, the shipping provider. They either lost 50% of our packages or damaged them severely for months. And obviously, our customers are very unhappy, even though it wasn't our fault. But we seriously tried everything. We did. It's from Florida, so it gets very hot. We did dry ice. We did like really cushioned packaging. Nothing mattered. We just kept having issues, and we were losing money, and it was just making people unhappy too. So
Yeah.
we're still young, and we plan to in the future ship because it's really really good. Ship donuts and things like that, but probably won't be for a couple of years. The name's Hale Life Bakery too. I know you know that, but for the people listening, Hale Life Bakery is the name. And if you're ever in Tampa, Florida, or Orlando, Florida, we're all over. We're in tons of different stores and cafes and things like that. So that's our main focus is just getting it into local locations in Florida and growing so we can one day ship too.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Do you like baking and cooking?
I used to love. Well, that sounds okay. So I used to love it, and I still love it. But going to college and getting busy, I haven't had as much time to do it. So I've been using a lot of packaged meals. But it was my favorite thing to do, which my mom got me into as well, was to cook and bake gluten free because you really learn how to cook and bake all over again. Um, so I love it, and I've kind of gotten more into it now that I'm done with college this semester. I love cooking, especially, but I'm not the greatest baker or cook. I kind of just throw things together and hope it works. Sometimes it goes really great. Sometimes it's awful and disappointing, but that's just kind of how I like to cook and bake. So
I understand. So are you graduating this semester?
no, so I just started last year, so it's going to be a
Okay.
long process because I'm doing only part time since I'm a busy guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I don't know how long it's going to take me. I'm just doing it more to be smart because I always plan to work for myself forever. And also, my mom never got the chance to go to college because she had me at 18. So I kind of just want to not make any mistakes. And you never know what happens in life. It would suck to, something happens to my company and then I don't have a job and then I also don't have a degree. So I'll get it when I get it. But right now, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And it'll at least add a little bit more credibility, to what I'm doing, at least if I apply for a job. So we'll see.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
What are you
Yeah.
studying?
I'm getting a bachelor's in marketing with a minor in consumer psychology. So I'm a very deep thinker and I like psychology a lot. I did my first psychology class this past semester and I loved it. And it really allows me to kind of, even talking about this stuff and talking like this, to really understand people more and understand that sometimes, even with mental illness, that it's not the fault of the person. It's just sometimes it's just biology, and it helps you be a little bit more empathetic and sympathetic to people. So I really loved it for that part, and I always wanted to be a psychologist or psychiatrist as well. But now I can kind of do a little bit of that.
I love that. I have a master's in counseling, so I'm all about the
Oh,
psychology. Yeah, it's
that's
good.
awesome. Yeah, do you feel
Yeah.
like that's helped you a bit with what you do, like with your gluten-free stuff or your profile at all? Like just at least helping people?
Yes. I mean, I feel like it has helped me in life, in
Yeah.
general. Like, I was only a therapist for a short bit, but I wouldn't trade my education for anything.
Yeah.
It's just a valuable life skill, and exactly, you learn to be more empathetic. You learn
Right.
to understand people in a way that not everyone does, and so
Hmm.
I feel super super grateful for it.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell just from the way you talk about things that you kind of have a little bit more. I feel like I read people pretty well. That you have like empathy for people and understand things a little bit more. So that's awesome that you did that, and makes me feel confident in doing that as well. At least for my consumer psychology. So I'm excited.
Yes, highly recommend anyone takes psychology classes.
Yeah,
I just think there's always something about understanding people, right? Like coming from a
yeah,
different perspective and showing up in a way that you see somebody else and you're willing to see their point of view. And, everyone has a story, and it's important that people feel heard and they feel seen. And I
yeah,
think we're lacking in that in this like achievement society, which
yeah.
I'm an achiever to the bone, but
Right.
I also am like a very empathetic person because I think we would be better off if people knew that they were seen and heard and that their opinions
Hmm.
mattered.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, and that goes with what I try. That's what I believe and try and share as well. Is that if we all just even were open-minded and tried to make a point to understand each other's perspectives, that not everyone, even people who make mistakes and say rude things, um, not everyone is truly like mean or rude at heart. Some people just make mistakes and get lost in their emotions or whatever it may be. And I think it's good to just try and be open minded to. You don't know what someone's dealing with or what's going on in life. Just like we have a lot going on in life, just with celiac, right? Illnesses or especially not feeling well. It's hard to be happy when you don't feel well a lot. So I completely agree with you that if everyone was a little bit more just open minded and kind hearted and at least sympathetic, I think people would get a lot, get along a lot more. And at least we wouldn't be arguing about so much all the time, whatever it may be.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want people to know about you today?
Not really. I guess I'll share. There's one thing I've talked about what I'm working on a little bit. I know not a whole lot of people are viewing right now, but I don't care. I kind of want to share it. I'm
Yeah.
planning this summer or this fall, depending when I have time. I have been trying to work on something for a while. I have a lot planned out, but I wanted to do. Well, I'm going to be doing a podcast, so that's my
Yeah.
plan for at least by the end of the year. It's my goal is to do a podcast to just really help people understand one another. And the biggest segment that I'll be doing, which is the only thing I'll share about it, is the main segment is I feel like people have different perspectives on things, even celiac or mental illness, or the example I use is even alcoholism. I have a friend who was an alcoholic and is recovering now, and I feel like that's a very sensitive issue, along with many others, where the perspectives are so different. Where there's parents of alcoholics, there's friends of alcoholics, there's someone who is an alcoholic, and they all feel different things about it and go through different things. And I feel like if we could hear from different perspectives of very serious, hard situations of people going through it, people who have recovered from it, or people who have witnessed it, that we would understand those issues a lot more. So that's going to be my main segment, which is a very serious segment for my podcast, where I'm going to have at least 3 to 4 people in just on this podcast talking about whatever topics it may be. That was just an example, just so we can just have an open discussion of talking about these things and just understanding. And I feel like if you could listen to a group of people who have all gone through it or witnessed it, that anybody who struggles with those issues or know someone that struggles would have a better understanding as well. Um, so that's my big plan for my podcast. But I'll have a lot more fun things as well, just so it's not serious all the time, involved in it in different segments. But that's the main one I'm most excited about because I feel like it can really help people at least understand each other or feel like they're not alone too, which is what I'm all about.
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
Thank you.
Amy said, will you keep people updated on your Instagram once it comes
Yeah,
to be?
yeah, for sure.
Awesome. And then do you have a dog or a cat?
I have a ferret.
You have
Ferret.
a ferret?
Yes, I
Is
think
it
that someone say
furry?
that Fury is what it
Fury.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody asked if we could see Fury.
I can go get her really quick. Hold on, she's sleeping. Or I can wake her up. Did you know that I had a ferret?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay. Yeah, her name is Fury, and I got her January. And I
Okay.
was a person who never expected to have a ferret either. Um, I'm a big animal lover, so I plan to have a bunch of animals one day. That's just who I am. And ferrets are actually extremely sweet, playful, and cuddly. And this is her.
Oh my
She was sleeping.
gosh.
See? So
Uh,
this is Fury, and she is extremely sweet. She never bites, which people have a myth. There's a myth about that ferrets just bite a bunch. Sometimes she bites toes if you're wearing socks because they think it's a toy. But they sleep 18 hours a day, and they're just super fun, playful creatures. Like I think they're the best of dogs and cats, like the best qualities. So she is amazing. It's hard not to want more. I'm pacing myself, but that is
yeah.
her.
Oh my gosh. So
Yep.
cute.
People have wanted me to create an Instagram just for her because she has a really big personality, which I
Yes.
might do soon if I have the time for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she's
Oh.
they're very cuddly and sweet.
Oh my gosh. So
Thank you.
adorable.
Yep. So that's her.
Ah.
Do you have any pets as
Okay.
well?
I don't. No pets.
Ah,
Yeah, none. No.
that's totally fine. I don't know how I even have time for a ferret, but I have a really strong attachment to animals, so I had to get something. But I'm pretty happy with her. She's pretty great.
Understand.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you?
They can find me at www.halelifeblog.com, which is where I share any content I share on Instagram or anything like that. I put on there as well. Or at Hale Life Taylor. Literally on anything: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter. Hale Life Taylor is where you can find me too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. This was so great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. This was the first time I've ever done a double Instagram live, so it was great. And thank you again for thinking of me just for doing this too. I had a great time.
Yes, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. I know
Yeah,
that it's super inspiring for young and old, but especially young people. I hope more people, really take to heart your overall message, not just what you're talking about in the gluten-free world, because
yeah,
we're all dynamic people and we have stories beyond just living with celiac.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you for talking about that as well, and even going further than just celiac too, because I think it's important. So I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely. Well, I will talk to you soon and I hope you have a good night.
Okay, yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor.
All right, bye.
Bye. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. This was so great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Was the first time I've ever done double Instagram live, so it was great. And thank you again for thinking of me just for doing this too. I had a great time.
Yes, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. I know that it's
Previously
super
on Home.
inspiring
Look at him.
for
She's
young
getting rich
and
out of this.
old, but
Why not us?
especially young
Formations for
people.
free.
I hope more
It's a
people,
business opportunity
really
for
take
you.
to heart your
Something for
overall
sale.
message,
Top
not
secret.
just what you're
Top
talking about
secret.
in the gluten-free world, because
American.
we're all
Well, that
dynamic
didn't get
people
him
and
out
we have
just like last
stories
time.
beyond just living with celiac.
How can I reach you?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for talking about that as well, and even going further than just celiac too, because I think it's important. So I appreciate that.
Oh, fuck. We're all
Absolutely.
friends, so.
Well,